Hey guys, how you doing? All right, here we go. This is our second lecture, and notice it's numbered 1.1. That's because it's from Module 1, so I'm doing some fancy-ass numbering system, or not, however you want to look at that. We're going to talk about staffing strategies, and let's face it, organizations, like individuals, vary. There's individual differences, and so it is with organizations. When we're embedded in an organization, we really have to understand the goals of the organization and the strategies that the organization has maybe applied in the past and where we might want to move those strategies in the future. That's going to be a struggle for many of you guys. You're going to go into human resources departments, you're going to have a lot of great ideas, and you're going to hear a lot of, yeah, but that's not the way we do things here. Fear not that change can happen, but change usually happens incrementally. And for those of you who've been in the workforce long enough, you know that sometimes suggesting change is very threatening to the people who are long-termers in the organization. But again, that doesn't mean it can't happen, and it doesn't mean it won't happen. It just requires a certain level of patience, a certain level of finesse to make changes as they occur. I know this happened to me when I went to Boise Cascade and become salaried. I spent my first 5 years at Boise Cascade driving a forklift and then driving a roll grab truck because we dealt with huge rolls of paper. And then I operated the packing machines that package copy paper, much like we're all familiar with, that we buy at Office Depot or wherever and load our printer with, or our Xerox machines. My last 2 years at Boise Cascade, I was a salaried employee, and I changed mills, and I started to make some changes that I thought would benefit, especially around data collection and tracking customer complaints, which was my primary job at that point in time. But change was not always well received, so just take it easy. Suggest your changes in time and be patient about what you can change and how quickly you can change it, right? Because you'll have a lot of good knowledge as a result of your college experience, and maybe some of the people that you're working for and with haven't had the benefit of your experience in this regard. So we got to discuss staffing strategies. Maybe. I don't know. Maybe not. Oh, shit. I suppose this is going to work better now. Okay. There's so many adjustments to make. I recorded the introductory message for the course. I did it for the third time this morning because I screwed up 2 times previously. So that's the doing something new, right? Doesn't necessarily go well the first time or the second time, but eventually we get it. Success, failure, significantly influenced by business domain and the time and the era. There can be a right time for a business, there can be a wrong time. There's just no two ways about it. Now, some businesses then operate on the upswing. They have greater potential to staff well. So is your business doing well, right? And is it an attractive business? Think about all the tech industries. Like Google was very attractive as it was ascending, still is to a certain extent, right? Working for Facebook was thought to be an awesome thing at a given time. Times change, though, and organizations. My Uncle Tony worked for a company called Singer, which was kind of an American icon that made Singer sewing machines, right? But Singer started going downhill, right? And they lost their camera division, etc. And so the challenge for Singer was that it would be more and more difficult to staff well, because the most attractive people in a competitive area are going to look for better positions at companies that are on the upswing. So one of the first considerations is, what is the future of potential for our business? Are we on an upswing, or are we on a downturn, or are we, starting to lay people off and become meaner and leaner in hopes to survive, or are we on this huge expansion because it seems that we can do nothing wrong? So businesses that staff well, though, have a greater potential to survive or flourish. So effective personnel selection, whether the company is kind of suffering in a downturn or moving through this tremendous expansive period, effective staffing is just as important to either of those companies. Now, what are the views that maybe people might take? The resource-based view really is success is tied to the ability to provide desired products, services to our customers, right? So a superior staffing process should enhance the ability to lower costs or provide innovative products or service. Okay? So employees in this context are often viewed as a resource that can kind of really benefit the company. Assumption is that resource provided has value and will maintain or increase in value. Now, competitive advantage. If we're looking at an organization that is in touch with a competitive advantage, then they seem to prioritize things like innovation, costs, right? Service, quality, branding. Oh, what an interesting term, right? Distribution, speed, convenience, first to market. Or, you know, the problem of effectively changing is organizational inertia. So we have to understand what the organization is about. And we're going to do some exploration of organizations to kind of so we can learn how to kind of evaluate an organization and our potential fit for it as a job seeker on the one hand. But on the other hand, once you're embedded in an organization and hiring people, you have to understand how to promote the positions that you're offering to people. General staffing quality needs. What are we looking for? What is a priority? Is it efficiency? Is it adaptability? Are we an organization that wants to be flexible? And if we want to be flexible, do we want to hire people who have a high level of adaptability, who can learn new things, who can change, who are flexible? Right? Are we hiring for training? That is, do we want people who are trainable, or do we want people that have skills that already exist? Are we looking for people who have a willingness to follow standardized procedures? And when I was at Boise Cascade, we went through a total quality transformation, and what we did was we taught ourselves the scientific method, experimenting, and we taught ourselves statistical process control, and that is data analysis. The idea, though, was, and we were always trying to identify best practices. What is the best way to do something? And once we discover and we can verify with data that this is the best way to do it, then we would train people to do it the same way. Now notice, we're not looking for creative or innovative people necessarily under these circumstances. We're looking for people who like to adhere to processes. So depending on the approach to how we do business really kind of gives us an overarching view of who we need to hire in certain respects. Do we need research talent? Are we looking for people with an entrepreneurial mindset, which is much different than people who are necessarily willing to follow standardized procedures? Do we put a premium on creativity? And how? Now, let's step a bit ahead into the course. How do we test applicants to determine their level of creativity? And then be able to rank order those applicants on their creative potential. Well, fortunately, as psychologists, we are good at measuring all kinds of shit, right? So, fear not. We are kind of the best choice to determine which measures might be useful in determining what qualities, or in fact, when we really up our game, developing measures to assess applicant fit. So some organizations, we need people who can tolerate ambiguities, but some people are not good at that, right? Do we want people who are learning oriented, or people who have networking skills? So we can go down this list, and I'm going to stop at this point going, talking about every item on this list, but you get the idea. It is, what are we looking for in a very general basis? We'll get more specific as we move on. Now, businesses have life cycles, and they have growth, they have maturity, they have decline, and if they want to maintain themselves over a long period of time, they need to be able to engage in a process of reinvention. Okay, so what stage is the organization in determines how attractive the organization is and might have an overarching influence on who we're hiring within the organization. So what about about a talent philosophy? What does that mean? Well, it's a system of beliefs about employees and how they should be treated, right? Are people to fill our vacancies in the short term, or are we seeking long-term contributions and relationships? I remember when I first started working at Columbus State, Dr. Tom, David, he and I are good friends. We went all the way back to graduate school. And I remember David called me up and he said, "Hey, Mark, how you doing?" We hadn't talked in a while. And he said, "I need a favor." And I said, "What do you need, David?" And he says, "Would you be willing to teach a course at Columbus State?" And I said, "Well, I got a full-time schedule here at Ohio State." And he says, "Just one course." And I said, "Well, I don't know. What's the course?" And he said, "Psych 1100. And I said, "Well, David, I've never taught Psych 1100 before." Right? Because I always taught upper-level stuff at Ohio State. And I said, "But, yeah, I guess I could do it. I'd be willing to give it a try. It'd be interesting. The extra money, the $2,400 for the class was nothing to sneeze at." And I said, "When do you need me?" And he says, "In 5 days." And I said, "Holy shit, David, I can't prep a course in 5." And he says, "You don't need to prep the course. I just need you in there. We had someone bail out at the last minute. The course is full. I'll give you all my materials. You'll be fine. You just got to come in, you just got to follow the program, and you'll be fine," right? So I was hired for a part-time position, right, short term. Now, little did we know, David and I know, that would become the entryway to becoming a tenure-track employee in the psychology department there at Columbus State, but which is a far different need and a far different assessment, right? Now, let's look at the next point. Do we value diversity as opportunity and potential, or do we view diversity as something that has to be dealt with? And a lot of organizations, diversity is just, oh my God, they told us from on high, upper management told us we have to diversify our department. So let's figure out how we got to do that, right? Or is it diversity something that we embrace, that we find useful? And for those of you who are in organizational psychology, remember that we talked about affirmative action versus valuing diversity versus managing diversity as 3 different approaches to diversity. So, and also, I will admit right now, I'm a shameless self-promoter. So if you like what happens in this course and you haven't taken Org Psych comes up now every fall. So I'd love to see you in the fall, and hopefully we can see each other in person. Holy shit, right? I hope. Do we see employees as a resource to manage, or do we see employees as partners in which to invest for our mutual benefit? And that's a huge difference in the approaches there, right? Are these people that we just need to manage because they're essentially unreliable or unmotivated, or are these people the people that with help will grow our business, right? What are our ethical principles towards employees? And that's a big question, right? And what do we value in our relationship with our employees? So all of these are considerations, and all of these then tell us about the organization. And again, we'll talk about how to figure this shit out. When you're looking for a job, think about, because there's 2 levels to this course. What you're learning now can benefit you tremendously as an applicant. And it also has the potential to benefit you as a hiring manager or human resources professional. So, potential effect of talent philosophy on human resource staffing strategies, and this will comprise part of our homework assignment, homework 2 here. Talent philosophy number 1, and that's, I put number 1 just so you can identify them in your homework assignment. What is this talent philosophy? Well, they want employees to contribute to the organization over the long-term career. So what is the strategy implied by that philosophy, right? We have an overarching philosophy. What does it mean strategically? Well, you want to acquire, you want to retain, you want to promote talent to focus on long-term development and contribution. So when you're hiring people based on this philosophy, notice how it affects your hiring strategy. And then what's the staffing strategy? Ultimately, recruits and hires talent capable of performing current tasks. So that's something we can measure. But then attempting to measure the potential to take on additional tasks in the future, right? What's going to happen then? The deploying part, that is getting down to brass tacks, doing business. Use succession planning, training, career planning, increasing potential over time. Now, how many of you would like to be with an organization long term and have that organization create opportunities for you to learn more, develop, and advance as a result of this? High performers and those possessing necessary potential are then the target applicants. All right? So, check it out here. You can see how the philosophy inspires the strategy, the global strategy, and then you get down to the staffing strategy, which is the nuts and bolts components of it. Let's look at talent philosophy number 2. Values the ideas and contributions of those with diverse backgrounds, perspectives, and cultures. Notice that's a little different than talent philosophy number 1. So this HR strategy then it treats employees fairly, with integrity and a lack of bias. And that becomes kind of one of the core values, is how do we eliminate the bias. Staffing strategy recruits and hires diverse people. And we're going to talk about what that means later in the course, as far as where do we recruit, how do we evaluate applicants, etc. So create mentoring programs that may need to address additional training needs. That is, if you want to go with diversity, then sometimes you may be looking at people who weren't as fortunate in the schools they went to. Right? Do you think hiring someone that comes out of West High School here in the Hilltop where I live, right, in Columbus, West High School, right, where the graduation rate is about 70%, do you think people who come out of West are necessarily the same people who come out of Upper Arlington High School, where the graduation rate is like 99.5%? If diversity is important to you, are you willing to take on additional remediation, that is, make up for opportunities that people were denied because of their socioeconomic status? How important is that to you? And if it is, right, then you have to build that in, right, and you have to think in terms of that, right? So then the retains, rewards, and promotes diversity champions. So who become the heroes within that organization? People who can advance the cause of diversity. But as I said before, when we talk about this in organizational psychology, that is effectively managing diversity. It's one thing to just say, oh, I like to have a bunch of different people around. But if that's as far as it goes, it's probably not going to work out so well. I like to have a bunch of different people around, and because of that, I need to design systems that support that in a way that's unbiased, fair, and still useful to the company. Talent philosophy number 3. Check this one out. What do we got? Views applicants and employees as investors of their time and energy. Right? Now, this may be, I'm trying to think what's akin to my position at OSU. Diversity is important, but we're a pretty diverse bunch in the psychology department, relatively speaking. We could certainly be more diverse, right? Our gender diversity in the psychology department is pretty solid, right? I think our ethnic diversity could use some improvement, right? That's just, where we stand right now, right? But in this case, what we're not talking about is diversity. We're talking people as investors of their time and energy. So to what extent am I willing to invest? And I think it should be pretty obvious now. I've got a monetary investment in bringing these classes to you, a tremendous time investment, right? And so the staffing strategy then, right, or the HR strategy is develop mutually beneficial relationships with employees and place a high value on respect. And I will say that we instructors are well instructed by our supervisor, Cravens Brown, and Dr. Vasey. Now, as far as all the tenure track professors in psychology, I hate to say this, I don't know that the instructors get a huge level of respect. Maybe they get a huge level of appreciation sometimes, but maybe not a high level of respect. I don't know. Maybe I'm taking that too far. The staffing strategy implied, though, attract and hire people with a good fit to the company culture and values, right? And most of the instructors that you probably deal with in the psychology department, instructors, I'm not saying professors, instructors, right, are really about you. They're about you first and foremost, right? So as far as our culture and values is we put students first, right? Puts employees in positions that satisfy organizational needs, and we match the abilities. So if they ask me, and they don't ask me to teach lifespan development. Why? Because a lot of people are better qualified. They stick me over in the organizational stuff and the social stuff and the law stuff because I'm a better fit to those areas, right? Now, retains, exercises a high level of flexibility to meet employee needs, and that they do. So how many courses do I want to teach? When do I want to teach them? Those are questions I'm asked. Not that they always get fulfilled, right? Now, let's look at the fourth talent philosophy. Has high ethical standards as treatment of its applicant and employees, treats applicants and employees with honesty, integrity, and fairness. And then the staffing strategy that is a result of this, explains hiring process and assessment techniques. This is something I'm going to stress throughout the course, though. Your applicant should be aware of everything that you're doing and why you're doing it, what is the meaning of it, right? And I think that's just respectful to applicants. But responsive and transparent in its dealings, right? This is why you were hired, or this is why we didn't hire you, right, is an exit conversation as part of the process. Gives honest and measurable objective feedback. So this is, you share test results with your applicants, right? Values legal compliance, retains promotions are performance and merit-based. This is something we're going to explore, that last statement, in terms of the Peter Principle. How do we promote? How do we develop these paths? And how do we do them in a scientifically supported and empirically supported manner? So, this introduces us then to homework 2, right? Assessing possible staffing strategy from a website. And a website is one of the first places that we can learn about an organization. Now, there's many other places to learn about organizations, right? What might some of those be? Maybe from people who already work there or people who've left there, right? There's all kinds of sources on the internet. My wife is big into Reddit, so I'm sure there's all kinds of statements or reviews of organizations there. I don't know about that. But the website is one place we can go. We can look at an organization's website and we can kind of read in depth and say, does this sound like someplace that I might want to work, right? So, homework 2 then, we're going to assess possible staffing strategy from the website. So, the purpose, practice investigating and classifying organization staffing strategy via their website. We got those 4 strategies that we talked about. I numbered them for the ease of communicating about it in your assignment. Okay? So, I want you to increase familiarity with the concept of staffing strategy and compare and contrast staffing strategies as part of this assignment. So team building is another aspect of this assignment. Remember, please, this is an ongoing effort to be emphasized in the team's infancy. And since this is homework 2, I'm going to call your team in the infancy stage. You guys haven't necessarily coalesced, congealed, however you want to put that yet. You will over time. Midway through the course, you're going to be tight for the most part, right? So what are the instructions? Each team's going to choose 3 different letters of the alphabet. So do that first. Just pick 3 different letters, right? Normally I hand out cards in class, so we randomly assign letters of the alphabet to teams, but we can't do that. So you're just going to have to choose letters. So you could be Q, L, J, for example, right? And then from that, teams will find 3 organizations by organization first name for each of the letters chosen. So this was just a weak attempt at random assignment, which isn't random now because we're not in person. So if I chose a D, Disney might be one company, right? I work for Disney off and on. So that's in my mind. If you chose a B, it could be Boise Cascade, right? Or Boise as it's called now. By the way, Disney, my mom was a casting director. She started casting for CBS in the 1960s, and eventually she moved organizations as a casting director, and at one point she ended up working for Disney. I think the big movie that she cast for Disney was Tron, which had been remade, but my mom was the first woman executive to be able to use the executive lunchroom at Disney. Can you imagine that that's even a thing? Yeah, gender differences, right? Huge. So my mom passed away about a year and a couple months ago. So anyway. Homework 2, instructions continued. Read and discuss each organization mission statement. So, About Us is the place to look on most websites. So you'll find a link to say About Us, and it will usually contain the mission statement. It might be a statement of values, and that's where you want to look, right? Read and discuss then from the 3 companies you've chosen with your teammates, then read and discuss the organization's mission statement. And then based on your conversation, this exploration, right, pick the staffing strategy from slides 8 through 11 in this module, right, implied by the statement on the company website. Now, you won't find a perfect matchup, but basically I want you to just work through trying to say, what is this company about? What might their staffing strategy look like, right? What is their talent philosophy? What is their staffing philosophy, right? Okay, so that's step 4. And then step 5, explain in one paragraph per organization why each organization has been so categorized, right? Hybrids are okay. You say, hey, well, it looks to me like a little combination of 2 and a little combination of 4. Just explain your reasoning there. If it combines, go with it. So you'll have a template, a Microsoft Word template, and notice, I really just copied and pasted from the template here. So I want to see explanation number 1, and I want it to be really clear like this. This is why I want you to use the template. Explanation number 2 and explanation number 3, that's for each of the 3 companies. So, company 1, this is their talent, and then for each organization, this is number 6, discuss the perceived conformance to the team's top 5 value list from homework 1. So, I asked you with homework 1, I said, hang on to this stuff, right? And what you're going to do now is look at your team's 5 values, and you're going to say, wow, which organization conforms to those values to the greatest degree? And you'll have your conformance discussion. All right? Explain to me why. Okay? So, of the 3 companies, which seems to be the closest fit to your team's agreed upon 5 values? Ultimately is what that is. And then number 7, informal but recorded vote, right, from your team on whether each team member would consider themselves a good fit potentially to that organization. So I want you to start considering. I want you, when you start applying for work, please do your homework, do your research, and say, would I be a good fit for this organization? Would I not be a good fit for this organization? Right? And that is kind of your personal exploration of what's important to you, but in terms of what an organization says they're about. Okay. I've read Boise Cascade's mission statement. I am not a good fit with Boise Cascade or Boise anymore. Their emphasis is not my emphasis. And if I were to apply to Boise, and I would likely become dissatisfied with my employment there. So it's better to know that before you invest your time and your energy, and maybe move somewhere, right? When I worked for Boise, I ended up in Walla Walla, Washington. I ended up in Eastern Washington. Now, I was okay there, but, I was going to school, so I quit Boise to go back to school full time. Unfortunately for them, but because they invested a lot of time and money in me. I still feel a tad guilty about that. But, if you work for a company and you go to outer, some far remote place to work for that company, and then you find out, wow, this isn't my cup of tea, you're kind of stuck, right? It's this extra layer of complexity to get yourself out of the mess you kind of got yourself into. And then this is what your table is going to look like. So I'm giving you example table. Here's your example table, and then there should be a blank table in the template that you can fill out. So the company name, the companies that I chose here is Disneyland, the Ohio State University, and Roto-Rooter, right? And I looked at the talent philosophies and the strategies, and I discussed all that. And by the time we get to point 7 in the assignment, right, here's our team member names. So I'm a team with Mark, Alice, Clinton, Boots, and Sochi, right? And then, I felt that I was a good fit. Alice said, well, I'm a good fit for Disneyland. Clinton said he's a good fit. Bootsy, she said she was a good fit. And Sochi said, no, I'm a bad fit. So then we just totaled up. There's, of our team members, 4 feel they'd be a good fit, 1 would be a bad fit. Just move through this, just fill out the table. It's no more complex or informative than that. Okay? Now, that is your homework assignment. Let's finish this up then. 9 elements of staffing strategy. These are considerations. Do we want a core and or flexible workforce? What do we want, right? Do we want to hire internally? Is it important to us to post the job internally and hire an internal candidate? Or would we prefer to hire externally? Or are we going to do both? And then how do we manage doing both, right? Do we want to hire to train? Do we want to hire for skills or train for needed skills? And when they asked me to be the tech rep at Boise Cascade, I remember them saying, you know, they said straight up, we don't, you know, you don't have as much paper manufacturing knowledge as we're going to require, so we're going to train you in every aspect of paper manufacture. The one thing that we need even more than that, though, is an ability for someone to interface with our customers. And they said, we don't believe that we can teach that, but we believe that you possess that. So they hired me on the basis of my demonstrated customer service skills and ability to communicate. And they said, we're willing to train you on the technical details. Right? What is our decision in that manner? Do we want someone who already has it, or are we willing to train? Do we want to replace, or do we want to train our current talent for new positions? Right? And these are just different decision points. What level of skill do we need for this position? Right? Do we want staff? Do we want to staff proactively? That is anticipating future needs. Or are we the kind of company that kind of staffs reactively? Oh shit, we need someone. We got to get someone right away, right? Which jobs should be a priority for our efforts? And if you're working for, you know, if you're working in a human resources department for a very large company, some jobs might gain higher emphasis than other jobs. Right? And figuring out, one thing as a human resources professional, you'll often be charged, you'll have a budget, you'll have a hiring budget, and you have only so much money to spend over the course of the year. You have to then become budget minded and learn how to prioritize and make tough choices about the money you want to spend on your hiring process. Okay. Is staffing viewed as an investment? That is, man, we're going to invest in these people and that's going to make our organization rock. Or it's, oh shit, we need people. It's going to cost us X amount to hire people, right? And is the staffing process centralized or decentralized? So if you have an organization with multiple outlets, right, like Starbucks, do you conduct the Starbucks hiring on a store-by-store basis? Does each store manage its own hiring process, or do you do centralized hiring on behalf of the individual stores, as an example? Okay. Now here's just a brief list, a source of ethical guidelines, and the American Psychological Association, I think, is a big place. It's published documents that describe test takers' rights and responsibilities. Because think about this, you're going to be testing applicants, so I think it's good. Let's face it, the APA is one of the leaders in testing human subjects. So I think one of the best sources to think in terms of ethics and ethical treatment of participants in this regard, applicants, if you will, is the APA. They publish the standards for educational psychological testing, so I think it's a great go-to, right? And you can go ahead. Now there are areas, other areas that are more specifically oriented towards industrial organizational psychology, so you can look at those as well. And you can see down at this book down at the bottom, Principles of Validation and Use of Personnel Selection Procedures. We're going to talk a lot about reliability, validity, ethics as the course unfolds. Fear not. Other ethical guidelines, and so these are just go-to sources. And remember, I am trying to set this set of PowerPoints as a textbook substitute. So a lot of times I just incorporate information that, you know, you're welcome to download this and kind of create your own virtual textbook if you want, you know, and this might be something that you want to stash on your hard drive, and maybe sometime down the road, you know, 4 or 5 years, you'll be working in human resources, or you'll be running your own business and you need to hire people, and you say, oh shit, what was that? And you'll have it. You'll be able to look at it. At least I'm hoping that it helps you in that regard. Full service, huh? High quality product, continuously improved, delivered, I hope, at a reasonable price. And that's all I got for you on this one. We'll come up to 1.2 not too long from now. And I hope you guys have a great day.